Hello students and welcome back to another Paper Street Academy video where we are covering the Hecatomb Iceberg. Today we are entering the second layer or tier depending on how you like to call it. I just call it getting weirder. However, I will cut this layer into two parts simply because of the fact that I want to have consistent uploads and I don't want to waste 3 weeks in production limbo. Last episode was well received. I got close to 100 views on that one and around 5 to 6 comments. I really want to thank everyone who watched it and who went out of their way to comment and like the video. If you're new to this series, I really recommend taking a look at the first episode. It really does explain what this is. But if you're not interested in watching that, the Hecatomb Iceberg is the ultimate conspiracy theory iceberg with 20 layers and almost 1200 entries, ranging from supposedly leaked government documents and conspiracies to secret societies, occult, religious, and paranormal phenomena. That's basically the TLDR of this, so without further ado, let us begin. First on the list we have the Philadelphia experiment, which was an alleged event claimed to have been witnessed by an ex-merchant mariner named Carl M. Allen at the United States Navy. Allen describes an experiment where the US Navy attempted to render invisible the destroyer escort USS Eldridge and the bizarre result that followed. The story first surfaced in the late 1955 when Allen sent a book full of handwritten annotations referring to the experiment to the US Navy Research Organization, and a little later a series of letters making further claims to a UFO book writer. Allen's account of the event is widely understood to be a hoax. Several different and sometimes contradictory versions to the alleged experiment have circulated over the years in paranormal literature and popular movies. The US Navy maintains that no such experiment was ever conducted, that the details of the story contradict well-established facts about the USS Eldridge, and the physics of the experiment is claimed to be based on is non-existent. Next up we have the Fresno Nightcrawler, also known as the Fresno Alien, is a cryptid that has made 2 appearances so far, one in Fresno, California, and the other one in Yosemite National Park, also in California. In both sightings, it's only been seen in video footage. However, a man in Poland has also claimed to have seen the creature. The Fresno Nightcrawlers appear to be relatively short creatures with most of their height made up of their legs. As they possess an extremely small upper body, it is hard to find details in the upper body in the cryptid due to poor quality of the footage. It is an extremely thin, white humanoid with no discernible arms. A large specimen appears to have webbing connections from each torso to the knee. The cryptid appears to have short, thin, and still-like feet. The caramel area creature is tall, gray, with presumably no arms and long muscular legs. It is a bipedal and walks in an odd manner with backwards bending knees. It also resembles the Fresno Nightcrawler. Next up we had Bouvet Island Boat. Bouvet Island is the most remote, most isolated, uninhabited place in the planet Earth. Imagine a place that is nearly covered in ice and surrounded by the coldest oceans in the world, and you would have a good idea of what it's like. The island is situated between the tip of Africa and the coldest continent on Earth. It is not the sort of place where it is likely for you to find a shipwreck. It is even hard for people who know where the island is to get to it. How is it then that an expedition discovered an abandoned lifeboat on Bouvet Island? Later reported that the abandoned lifeboat on Bouvet Island had no markings that would suggest any type of origin. It also had no motor, no sails, and was found on shore, along with a flattened copper tank and a barrel. There was no evidence of any people being on the island or any people that died on the island. There was simply nothing. Continuing with more weird stories, next up we have the Green Children. The legend of the Green Children of Woolpit concerns 2 children of unusual skin color who reportedly appeared in the village of Woolpit in Suffolk, England, sometimes in the 12th century, perhaps during the reign of King Stephen. The children, found to be brother and sister, were generally normal except for the color of their green skin. They spoke in an unknown language and would only eat raw, broad beans. Eventually they learned to eat other food and lost their green color, but the boy was sickly and died soon after. However, the sister was baptized and she adjusted to her new way of life. After she learned to speak English, the girl explained that she and her brother came from a land where the sun never shone, and the light was like twilight. According to one version of the story, she said everything there was green. According to another, she said it was called St. Martin's Land. The Patomskiy crater, or Patom crater, is a peculiar rock formation located in the region of southeastern Siberia. It is a large mound made of shattered limestone blocks on the slopes of Patom highlands in the area of dense taiga. Its base diameter is about 160 meters and its height is around 40 meters. The cone's crown is ring-shaped and it is centered. There is a smaller mound with a height about 12 meters. The volume of the crater is estimated as 250,000 cubic meters with a weight of about 1 million tons. The Patomskiy crater was discovered in 1949 by Russian geologist Vadim Kolpakov. Its origin has been the subject of intense scientific interest, with a hypothesis including meteorite, volcano, and gaseous origins, but to date no definite proof has been given, although scientists have said that the age of the crater is estimated to be 300 years old. Next we have is the Ranikot fort. The origin, purpose, and architects of the Ranikot fort are unknown. Archaeologists point to the 17th century as the time of its first construction, but Sindh archaeologists now agree that some of the present structures were reconstructed by the Telpur dynasty in 1812 at a cost of 1.2 million rupees. Battlements of Ranikot formed the last capital of the Amirs of Sindh when they were bought under the colonial rule of the British Empire. Radiocarbon tests were conducted at the San Gate on the charcoal embedded in the mortar of the collapsed pillar of the eastern gate of the fort. These tests have confirmed that the gate was probably renovated between the early parts of the 18th century and the early parts of the 19th century, prior to Britain invading the fort. Well, I bet that was very interesting for most of my audience, but well, you're not always going to get fun ones. In fact, this whole tier has a couple of these boring ones, but I digress. Moving on to the next one, and I promise I'll let you know when we get to an interesting one. Atlantis Tunnel is a topic that I couldn't find too much on, but from what I can gather is that the Atlantis Tunnel is the name given to the last section, completely flooded by marine waters of the volcanic tube of La Corona in the north of the island of Lanzarote. It's a Canary island in the municipality of Wood. The Cave of the Green and Gemeos del Aqua, famous tourist center of the island, are part of the same volcanic tube. The cave located in the north of the island and is the great geological and biological importance, hosting at least 36 species endemic from the island of great evolutionary interest. Well, enough with that, we're moving on to more obscure ones. A Day with SpongeBob SquarePants the movie is an unproduced, unlawfully made mockumentary that Regan Films and MVD would distribute. The movie has been postponed, but the director plans to make the movie through a crowdfunding effort. In this mockumentary, SpongeBob lives above ground like all Hollywood superstars. Afraid that SpongeBob is becoming old news, his boss runs a contest called Spend a Day with SpongeBob. This contest makes SpongeBob the talk of the town, as thousands of kids enter to win. The lucky winner is Seth, and he is ecstatic about his day with SpongeBob. However, the day becomes a roller coaster ride as things do not go quite the way they planned. Next up we have Dolphin Intelligence. And this one is fairly simple. It's that dolphins demonstrate the ability to do all of these things, and most scientists agree that dolphins are very intelligent. They are notoriously talented at mimicking, and they are also quick learners. They demonstrate self-awareness, problem-solving, empathy, innovation, teaching skills, grief, joy, and playfulness. That's pretty much all there is about this one. It's just to let you know that dolphins are pretty smart. Kali Yuga is the Age of Darkness and the last of the 4 Yugas. To understand what is Kali Yuga, we will discuss its duration, the different Vishnu avatars that appear in it, and other important symbols of this age. It is a time of darkness and despair among humanity and across the entire earth, when chaos, confusion, and hypocrisy reigns. The 4 ages are Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, and altogether these 4 comprise the one full cycle of Yuga. They are all of the 4 seasons that make up a year. 1000 Yuga cycles is equal to a day in Brahma, also known as Kalpa. Well, that made a lot of sense. Moving on to the next one. And the next one is a well-known topic because I talked about this in my previous iceberg. It is sex magic. Sex magic is any type of sexual activity used in a magical, ritualistic, or otherwise religious and spiritual pursuit. One practice of sex magic is using sexual arousal or orgasms with visualization of a desired result. A premise posted by sex magicians is the concept that sexual energy is a potent force that can be harnessed to transcend one's normally perceived reality. The Oz factor is a term coined by UFOologists and author Jenny Rendels. It refers to the experience of being isolated or transported by the real world of everyday life into another environment that is quite similar to the real world but changed enough to be noticed and disturbing. Such reports have been common in both UFO and paranormal accounts, but have been pushed aside until Randalls called attention to such experiences as common element in some types of UFO encounters. Such experiences often appear as an aspect of a long story of paranormal encounters, doing more to describe the atmosphere surrounding more spectacular or definitive experiences. Also, such stories appear closely related to phenomena like déjà vu, which makes an impact upon the person experiencing them, but only minimally impress the one whom the story is told. The stories about people who have felt a presence, sensed some guidance, or seen something that led them to sense that they are being unwittingly pulled away from the normal sequence of experiences. It is almost impossible to further investigate the anecdotal accounts, however reality-shattering they might be to the person experiencing them. Petrocurrency, or more commonly known as petrodollars, are popular shorthand for revenues from petroleum exports, mainly from the OPEC members plus Russia and Norway. Especially during periods of historically expensive oil, the associated financial flows can reach a scale of hundreds of billions of US dollars equivalent per year, including a wide range of transactions in a variety of currencies, some pegged to the US dollar and some not. However, the reason why this is here is because of the many wars that were fought over it. If a country refused to use a petrodollar, then all hell broke loose, and the USA quickly gets involved to bring peace and democracy. So was the case with Muammar Gaddafi, which wanted to make his own form of petrodollar, and well, you know what happened to him. And if you don't, he got overthrown and killed. Tomoki Uemiya is a fairly not well-known topic, and it shows with how little I was able to find on this, but from what little sources I had, Tomoki Uemiya is a Japanese channel that claims to have been receiving messages from space, more specifically a spaceship, since 1994. That's as much as I was able to find on this one. Malthusianism is the theory that population will continue to grow while the growth of food supply and other resources will decline, which eventually reduces living standards to the point of triggering a population to die off. This event, called a Malthusianism catastrophe, occurs when a population growth outpaces agricultural productions, causing a famine or war, resulting in poverty and depopulation. Such a catastrophe inevitably has the effect of forcing the population to correct back to a lower, more easily sustainable level, quite rapidly due to the potential severity and unpredictability of the mitigating factors involved, as compared to the relatively slow timescales and well-understood processes governing unchecked growth or growth affected by preventive checks. Malthusianism has been linked to a variety of political and social movements, but almost always advocates for population control. Next up, we have a pretty interesting one. It's the HAARP program. HAARP was initiated as a research program jointly founded by the US Air Force, the US Navy, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, also known as DARPA. It was designed and built by BAE Advanced Technologies. Its original purpose was to analyze the ionosphere and investigate the potential for developing ionospheric enhancement technology for radio communications and surveillance. Since 2015, it has been operated by the University of Alaska Fairbanks. HAARP is the subject of numerous conspiracy theories. Various individuals have speculated about the hidden motivations and capabilities of the project. For example, Rosalie Bartel warned in 1996 about a deployment of HAARP as a military weapon. Michael Chisudovsky stated in a book published by the Committee on Monetary and Economic Reform that recent scientific evidence suggests that HAARP is fully operational and has the capability of triggering floods, hurricanes, droughts, and earthquakes. Over time, HAARP has been blamed for generating such catastrophes as well as thunderstorms in Iraq, Pakistan, Haiti, Turkey, Greece, and the Philippines, and even major power outages, the downfall of TWA Flight 800, Gulf War syndrome, and chronic fatigue syndrome. The limbic system is the part of the brain involved in behavioral and emotional responses, especially when it comes to behaviors we need for survival, such as reproduction, caring for our young, and the fight or flight responses. You can find the structures of the limbic system buried deep within the brain, underneath the cerebral cortex and above the brainstem. The thalamus and the hypothalamus, the production of important hormones and regulating of thirst, hunger, and mood, etc., and basal ganglia, which is the rewarding process, habit forming, movement, and learning, are also involved in the actions of the limbic system. But two of the major structures are the hippocampus and the amygdala. Also, I don't know if you noticed this, but if you look at the limbic system, how it's structured, it kind of resembles the Eye of Horus. And now we have a pretty interesting one. This one is called AIDS Spread by the CIA. Since the Center for Disease Control and Prevention first reported the HIV/AIDS epidemic in 1981, rumors have persisted that the deadly virus was created by the CIA to wipe out homosexuals and African Americans. Even today, the conspiracy theory has a number of high-profile believers. South African President Thabo Mbeki once touted the theory, disputing scientific claims that the virus originated in Africa and accusing the US government for manufacturing the disease in military labs. When she won the Nobel Peace Prize, Kenyan ecologist Wangari Maathai used the intentional spotlight to support the theory as well. Others insist that the government deliberately injected gay men with the virus during the 1978 hepatitis B experiment in New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. Still others point to Richard Nixon, who combined the US Army Biowarfare Department with the National Cancer Institute in 1971, thought the co-discoverers of HIV, Dr. Robert Gallo, the National Cancer Institute, and Dr. Luc Montagnier of the Pasteur Institute in Paris, don't agree on its origins. Most members of the scientific community believe the virus jumped from monkeys to humans sometimes during the 1930s. Next up we have Panspermia. Panspermia is a hypothesis first proposed by the Greek philosopher Anaxagoras that life existed throughout the universe, distributed by space dust, meteoroids, asteroids, comets, and planetoids, as well as by spacecraft carrying unintended contamination by microorganisms. Panspermia is a fringe theory with little support amongst mainstream scientists. Critics argued that it does not answer the questions of the origin of life, but merely places it on another celestial body. It is also criticized because it cannot be tested experimentally, so I guess it kind of falls off the map. Next up we have a very weird one. This is called Polybius. Polybius is a fictitious 1981 arcade game that is part of an urban legend. The legend describes the game as a part of a government-run, crowdsourced psychology experiment based in Portland, Oregon. Gameplay supposedly produced intense psychoactive and addictive effects on the player. These few publicly staged arcade machines were said to have been visited periodically by men in black suits for the purpose of data mining the machines and analyzing these effects. Allegedly, all of the Polybius arcade machines disappeared from the arcade market. The urban legend says that in 1981, when the new arcade games were uncommon and unheard of, new arcade games appeared in several suburbs in Portland, Oregon. The game was popular to the point of addiction, with lines forming around the machines and often resulting in fights over who would play next. The machines were visited by men in black who collected unknown data from the machines, allegedly testing responses to the game's psychoactive effects. players supposedly suffered from a series of unpleasant side effects including seizures, amnesia, insomnia, night terrors, and hallucinations. Approximately 1 month after its supposed release in 1981, Polybius is said to have disappeared without a trace. JFK killed by the CIA is a long-standing conspiracy theory that we will see a lot more, and I think there was a conspiracy theory about JFK in the previous one as well, but it wasn't the first and it definitely won't be the last. If you notice the recurring trend, it's that all of these conspiracy theories tie into each other, and actually the deeper we get into this iceberg, you will see that all of this is connected, which is insane, but I will leave that for only the loyalist of viewers. The CIA Kennedy assassination theory is a prominent JFK assassination conspiracy theory. According to ABC News, the Central Intelligence Agency is represented in nearly every theory that involves American conspirators. The secretive nature of the CIA and the conjecture surrounding high-profile political assassinations in the USA during the 1960s have made the CIA a plausible suspect for some who believe in conspiracies. Conspiracy theorists have ascribed various methods and motives for the CIA's involvement in the assassination of President Kennedy, including Kennedy's firing of CIA Director Alan Dulles, Kennedy's first refusal to provide air support to the Bay of Pigs invasion, Kennedy's plan to cut the agency's budget by 20%, and the belief that the president was weak on communism. But this is only the beginning of those theories, and the CIA's involvement in the assassination of JFK only gets darker, and the more we dive deeper into this iceberg, we will encounter that he was killed for the purposes of an occult pagan ritual sacrifice known as the plot to kill the king. But for the sake of me unaliving myself, this is all a big fat joke. Moving on. The next one is birthism, and this one I found on the dictionary, which describes the belief in an endorsement of any various discredited claims that US President Barack Obama is not a natural born US citizen and therefore was not constitutionally eligible to be President of the United States. That's pretty much all there is for this one. It just says that Obama wasn't born in the United States and that he shouldn't have been president. The lost cosmonauts, or the phantom cosmonauts, are a subject of a conspiracy theory alleging that some Soviet cosmonauts went to outer space, but their existence has never been publicly acknowledged by either the Soviet or Russian space authorities. This was during the Cold War, and the Soviet Union wanted to launch a human spaceflight, but the first man died in the trials, and to prevent from bad publicity, they suppressed the information. Next on the list, we have Pope Joan. Pope Joan was, according to a legend, a woman who reigned as Pope for 2 years during the Middle Ages. Her story first appeared in chronicles in the 13th century and subsequently spread throughout Europe. The story was widely believed for centuries, but most modern scholars regard it as fictional. Most versions of the story describe her as a talented and bright woman who disguised herself as a man. In the most common accounts, owing to her ability, she rose through the church hierarchy and eventually was elected Pope. Her gender was revealed when she gave birth during a procession, and she died shortly after, either through murder or natural causes. The accounts state that later church processions avoided this spot and that the Vatican removed the female pope from its official list and crafted a ritual to ensure that future popes were male. In the 16th century, Siena Cathedral featured a bust of Joan among other pontiffs. This was removed after protests in 1600. Sinbad's Shazaam is one of the most famous examples of the Mandela effect. It has gotten many people debating the existence of a movie that other claims it never existed. There have been many explanations, and I quote explanations, as to why people seem to remember the American stand-up comedian starring as a genie in a 1990s film going by the name of Shazaam. In 2012, before the Mandela effect theory even existed, a Reddit post popped up asking about a genie movie starring the American stand-up comic Sinbad. Many people claim to remember the movie and remember either renting it from Blockbuster or watching the movie on TV. However, people were shocked to realize that the movie, soon named Shazaam by one with the memory, never existed. There was no record of Sinbad ever starring as a genie or a movie ever being released by the name of Shazaam. This has caused many conspiracies in many families and friends who vividly remember watching the movie. Many people who remember the movie have asked Sinbad about the movie. However, he claims that he had never made such movie or starred as a genie. While reading this, and I had no idea what Sinbad's Shazaam was until I made this recording, but I remember watching a movie about a genie. I'm just not sure if this one is Sinbad's Shazaam or something else, but it was something like a basketball genie. I'm not sure, but I remember a movie, like maybe genie movies were all the rage, you know? I mean, remember Aladdin? Up next, we don't really have a conspiracy theory, except this was a real life case and someone actually died, but the circumstances in which the murder was carried on are extremely suspicious. Elisa Lam is a young woman that was found dead in the water tank of a hotel in Los Angeles after the customers complained about the water being dark and with low pressure. She was known to have bipolar disease, and she was known for not always taking her medicine. A video of her in an elevator before she disappeared went viral, and people tried to explain her weird behavior. People pointed similarities with an old scary movie where the plot of the crime is the same, and many thrillers and horror movies are inspired from her death. However, I'm just giving the short version of this. If you want to check this case on Wikipedia, you're free to do so. There's a lot more things to take into consideration. The Bouvet, also referred to as the Great Nothing, is an approximately spherical region of space found in the vicinity of the constellation Bouvet, containing few galaxies, hence its name. It's enormous, with a radius of 62 megaparsecs at nearly 330 million light years in diameter. Of the observable universe, the Bouvet void is one of the largest voids in the universe and is referred to as a supervoid. Its discovery was reported by Robert Kishner as part of the survey of galactic redshifts. The center of Bouvet's void is approximately 700 million light years from Earth. Clinton body double is a theory that when I tried to research, most of the results were deleted, and what remained was mostly publications by news sites that had the same story. However, I did manage to piece something together. The story here is that prominent politicians, in this case Hillary Clinton, has a body double that she deploys in times of political debate that she can't attend due to health reasons. The theory was during the 2016 presidential election, where Hillary was suffering from a disease that made her pass out. So in turn, to make her attend these events, they conspired to have a lookalike attend those said events. 4chan alien sighting hoax refers to a photoshopped image purportedly taken of an alien at Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, Arizona, which was submitted to 4chan as a hoax in late February in 2017. Due to a temporary server outage following the posting of the image, many speculated that it was being scrubbed off the internet due to a reptilian government conspiracy. And we are ending this part of the layer with a bang. Bohemian Grove is a restricted campground at Bohemian Avenue in Monte Rio, California, United States, belonging to a private San Francisco-based gentlemen's club known as Bohemian Club. In mid-July each year, Bohemian Grove hosts a more than 2-week encampment of some of the most prominent men in the world. Every July, some of the richest and most powerful men in the world gather for a 2-week of heavy drinking, super secretive talks, druid worship, and other rituals. Their purpose for this is to escape the quote-unquote frontier culture or uncivilized interests of common man. The people that gather at Bohemian Grove, who have included some prominent business leaders, former US presidents, musicians, and oil barons, are told that weaving spiders come not here, meaning business deals are to be left outside. One exception was in 1942, when the planning for the Manhattan Project took place at the Grove, leading to the creation of the atomic bomb. A spokesperson for Bohemian Grove says the people that gather there share a passion for the outdoors, music, and theater. The club is so hush-hush that little can be definitely said about it, but much of what we know today is from those who have infiltrated the camp, including a Texas-based filmmaker, Alex Jones. In 2000, Jones and his cameraman entered the camp with a hidden camera and were able to film a Bohemian Grove ceremony, Cremation of the Care. During the ceremony, members wear costumes and cremate a coffin effigy called Care before a 40-foot tall statue of an owl in stark contrast to the surrounding red trees. Anyways, that is all for now. I hope to see you in part 2 of this layer. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to comment and subscribe because it helps me out in ways I can't even describe. And as always, thanks for watching.